Hello, everyone. So nice to see so many of you here. We have MBA students, we have some colleagues from the university, and also I can see we have guests from other universities that have joined us today. So it's great to be here today, and I have the great pleasure to introduce to you Monica and Masucci, Dr. Monica Masucci and Jeremy Jacobs. This is just to give you a bit of a sense of what we are trying to do with this. This is a series that we've put together this year at the Sussex MBA to very much tap into the incredible talent of our alumni and to follow what they've done after the MBA. And also to pair the conversation up with one of our wonderful academics, and to really try to analyze and to bring to the forefront this marriage between academia and the world of practitioners, which is exactly what an MBA is all about. And so with Gemma, who is hiding behind the scenes in our MBA office, we are putting together several of these. And this time we are discussing entrepreneurship at times of COVID. So who has survived? What did entrepreneurs need to do? And we actually have an entrepreneur, Jeremy Jacobs. Jeremy, he's the co-founders of Race Bakery and an MBA alumnus. Can people put on mute? Sorry. We are hearing a lot of noise. Thank you. Thank you, Olawale. That was actually from your mic. Thank you so much. So Jeremy Jacobs is the co-founder of Race Bakery. So Race Bakery overnight during the COVID was providing a lot of cupcakes to Virgin Atlantic. An incredible numbers. Jeremy is going to tell us about these incredible numbers of cupcakes. And all of a sudden, that business stopped, and they really managed to turn around. So Jeremy is an alumnus of the MBA. He started Rice Bakery with his mom in 2009. He has also extensive experience in global digital marketing agencies across international markets. He has worked for clients including Waitrose, Lois, TSB, Barclays, and many other important companies. He is also, and he will tap into this, an advocate for physical and mental health and individuals being as authentic selves as they can at work. And this is a fantastic point that we hope to touch towards the end of this speaker series. And Monica, Dr. Monica Masucci, she is a lecturer in strategy and entrepreneurship at the University of Sussex Business School, where she also leads the MSc in strategic innovation. She is the head of the pre-acceleration at Bocconi for Innovation, which is the startup accelerator of the Bocconi University in Milan. She holds a PhD in business administration from Bocconi, and she has extensive teaching and consulting experiences in the area of strategy, entrepreneurship, and innovation. And she's been an advisor to many startups, and she's one of the most articulate people that I know speaking about entrepreneurship. So I'm so happy to have both Jeremy and Monica. And if we were in person, we would be giving a clap, but we can't because we're not in person. So without further ado, let's get and dive into the entrepreneurship during COVID. When we prepared for this, I thought I had to be a really good chaperone and ask a lot of questions. But then I realized that Monica and Jeremy get along very well and really don't need me. And so I think we should actually test this also here. So Monica and Jeremy, how did we decide to do this? Shall we? Who wants to go? Who wants to tell us about entrepreneurship?
I think Monica.
I can go first, and then I pass the ball to Jeremy. So first of all, thank you very much, Zahira, for inviting us today. It's a pleasure to be here, and welcome everyone. So when we are discussing about what has allowed companies to survive through this pandemic, Jeremy and I were thinking about several things, but one of the first things that came to our mind was pivoting. We have been seeing so many companies that had to pivot during this pandemic, not just for short-term survival, but also to explore ways to be long-term resilient, and to grow in the long term. So they had to pivot their business models, identify different channels to reach their customers, change their value proposition to those customers. And I think Jeremy has very good examples stemming from his own experience of pivoting. When we talk about pivoting, the things that we should keep in mind are that pivoting is not necessarily leading to positive outcomes. You have to do that strategically as well. So you have to build also on trends that may have been arising through this pandemic, for instance, remote working. So in the long term, you should build on these trends and identify a pivot that allows you to grow also in the future, not just to address this short-term challenge. And in a way that should be also consistent with the capabilities that you as a startup have developed over time. So if we think of Airbnb, for instance, and the pivot that Airbnb has been engaging in, moving from a rental platform also to become more of a lifestyle platform, now they have been able to support financially the renters there by engaging them in different type of experiences that they were streaming. It could be cooking classes, it could be virtual tours. So they identified a new line of business that they've been engaging in. Same with restaurants. Think of many restaurants suddenly not able to welcome people anymore to their premises. So some of them pivoted, moving through delivery, and they maybe devised different types of revenue streams by choosing flat rates for people that were buying more meals during the week, a certain number of meals during the week or the month, but with limited menu choices. And several other examples I can bring to the table that have allowed these companies to survive through this pandemic. Jeremy, any example drawing on your experience that you can share with us?
Yes, absolutely. So thank you. Welcome, everyone. I know some of you in the room. Yeah, I'll just give you a little bit of context about where we were before in sort of February, March time before the pandemic took hold. As Zahira said, I own a food manufacturing business, Ray's Bakery. I started at my parents' kitchen. And two of our biggest customers at the time were in retail and travel. And you don't have to be a genius to work out what happened to those. They all were shut down overnight. And we had calls from our clients within 24 hours to say, we are putting everything on hold. You know, there was so much uncertainty at the time, right? You didn't have to be working in any industry to know that there was so much uncertainty about what was going on. So we had to shut our production down, shut the business down, and basically put everything on hold and wait to find out what was going on. And within about a week of that happening, I was sat around and I was just starting to think about what can we do, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for over 12 years. And I say this all the time. I think one of the key skills and what makes an entrepreneur is the ability to be able to spot and take a spot opportunity and actually to take action and to do something about it. So that's exactly what I did. So I have a background in digital marketing. I left that career in 2009 in the last big kind of upset in the world, the big financial crash, and took voluntary redundancy from my career. I had this fantastic career working for a media agency, running digital marketing campaigns as an account director in an agency. Left that job and actually started this business. So I always say that, you know, this is a great time to start a business. And I think one of the main reasons is that we're forced into a place where we don't really have a lot of choice. Like if someone is made redundant or loses their job, that's when they start to think about, well, what else could I be doing? Because they're pushed outside of that comfort zone through no choice of their own. Often I think when people are working in jobs, and I talk to a lot of people who are looking to start their own business, that is their biggest fear. It's taking that leap of faith. And I think in these environments, people are often pushed into a place where they're like, well, what have I got to lose? So I've been through that journey, and I'd learned a lot of skills around building websites and marketing them online. So I went and set up an online shop, and within 24 hours, we had it online. And within 48 hours, the orders started to flood in. The reason for that was, if anyone bakes or cooks and tried to get hold of flour in supermarkets in the UK, you would know that there was a massive flour shortage to the point it hit the news. So we basically jumped on that very, very quickly, and we were having about 400 or 500 orders coming through a day. Now, you have to remember that I do not have an online shop. We never had an online shop. We didn't have any infrastructure to deal with this. So we had to move very, very quickly. We had to hire 10 staff in the space of a few days. And with that kind of trend that lasted for about 2 months, we sold about 25 tons of flour in that time. So I'll leave it there. That kind of gives you the context that, you know, we talked about pivoting. I went on so many webinars and did so many talks in April and May, because we got a fair amount of press attention, and people were asking me to come and talk about it, because it was this really nice story of a business pivoting in to a new channel. We still have that online shop. We've grown it now to, I think, probably about 150, 200 product lines, and we've launched our own range of baked goods on there, which we've been developing, and we're continuing to develop that off the back of it. So yeah, that's kind of an overview of what we did last March.
So thanks, Jeremy. So pivoting was key for you to survive through this pandemic, as it was to many other businesses.
Yeah.
But that comes also with investment, maybe in IT, in marketing, and logistics. As we observe in many small farms and shops, people suddenly not selling to restaurants anymore, but selling to homebound customers. That entailed a lot of investments as well. What we noticed and we discussed was also that there was an increased online presence of businesses in general. So increased investment in digitization, and especially this increasing online presence came with more attention to the optimization of their website, SEO research, improved user experience. Can you tell us, you are also a digital marketer, so you have a lot of expertise into this field as well. So can you share with us what you did to engage better with your community, to keep your customers, those that you had already engaged with, and to also engage with new customers through your increased online presence?
Yeah, so we did a lot of so my background when I was working in digital marketing was paid search. So I was one of the first people to sort of really get into paid search, because we're going back to like when Google AdWords, what it was called then, it's now Google Ads, started out. And so I was very skilled in that area, and I've built my entire business pretty much off the back of paid search. That's how we started out. And so that was a really important channel for us, because we had people who were desperate for flour searching on Google, and we were putting our ads in front of them, who were coming through to us and buying straight away. So it was actually very straightforward. But you raised some interesting points in terms of how do we keep those customers engaged, because we need to retain the customers. They need to be coming back. It's very expensive to go and get new customers in. It's much easier to sell to our existing customer base. So it was very important for us to make sure that our service, and this is something that's always been very important, because the barriers to entry into our market is relatively low, probably less so at the level we are at now. But anyone here, if they really wanted to, could go and start a bakery quite easily, or work from home and set something up. So we have to think about that. And then, so we have to think about how we differentiate ourselves from everyone else, because there was loads of other companies doing exactly the same. And this is a point I wanted to mention, was that, you know, lots of businesses have pivoted, but what's happened is all our competitors have all moved into the same space. So the market's become extremely crowded very, very quickly. So you have to really fight to stand above everyone else. And there's a couple of options. You can start to compete on price. and drive the price down to get people to buy from you, or which isn't really our approach, because for us, we've always been about service and delivering what the customer expects and exceeding that. It's built into our brand, how we talk, how we speak to our customers. If any customer had a problem with the order, we would give them whatever they wanted, refund and resend something out, no questions asked. We kind of modeled that on Zappos. I've read their book recently about how they created that culture. And that's extremely important to us because, just keeping the customer happy. So that would probably be our key tactic in terms of retaining the customer. And then I was really interested in thinking about setting up things like a loyalty scheme. So we have that on our website. So customers get money back when they buy product from us to spend with us later. We engage with them through regular email updates, social media channels, but it's really important for us to firstly understand the customer and what they're looking for and what their needs are, and to really look after them, make them feel special. We've got some super fans, trust me, who message us a lot. And if you go over to our Trustpilot page on Trustpilot, you'll see that we're coming up to about 1,000 reviews at the moment, and we're average 4.9 out of 5. So customers absolutely love us, and it proves. And we use that in all of our marketing and on our website. We really put that in people's faces, like, look, people trust us and they really like what we do. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Monica.
Definitely. So can we say that through this pandemic, many businesses were also able to know better their customers and to find more creative ways to engage with them by developing new creative content, engaging in online communities, posting and regularly updates to their customers. So that was also a chance to know the customer community better and satisfy them better.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really, really important. I think content creation, and giving customers more than just like, particularly for us where we're selling bakery ingredients, it's a really tough market out there. So, we're actually developing a social media content strategy at the moment, which is to look at seasonality and trends and occasions, because often people will bake for occasions, whether that's Valentine's, birthday, Mother's Day, Father's Day. There's loads throughout the year. So we make sure that we're going to create content around that, but then also things to keep the customer engaged. So new recipe ideas, fun things. I think that's really important as well. It's very important for us to make sure that our product selection as well and what we offer the customer is really on trend and what people are looking for. I talk about this all the time when I talk to anyone who wants to think about their marketing, is understand your customer audience, not just your demographics like their age, where they live, what they earn, but how they think, what they're looking for, what their concerns are, what their fears are, what their challenges are, all those sorts of things. Really understand that and tap into that and provide value for them around those sorts of questions and fears or concerns they might have.
So you were lucky in a way because you could already tap into your digital marketing experience.
Yes.
Many people had to develop and acquire quickly new skills. They had to become more agile. They had to acquire digital marketing skills that they didn't necessarily have. So there's definitely been an issue about upskilling or reskilling the people working in businesses, right?
Yes.
So what did you observe in general about your business? How did you go for that? As concern your other employees or your competitors or other businesses you partner with?
So, as you say, I'm in a very fortunate position because I have a background in digital marketing. So it was very easy for me to do that. I think sort of observing, what's been going on, I think people have had to learn very quickly to upskill. I think the advantage in some respects is that if you look at the major platforms like Google Ads, for example, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they are designed in a way to make it as easy as possible for the average entrepreneur to be able to set up and run. Why? Because they want your money, basically. They want you to spend money on advertising and they want you to create content for them. The popularity of things like Instagram and TikTok live and die by the user generated content. So if people stop generating content that is not engaging, then those platforms will die out. And that is why it's so important for them to spend a lot of money providing support for entrepreneurs, business owners, and people to be able to create content for them. And I think there's a lot of content out there that enables people to do it. But the problem is particularly with paid search advertising, if you don't get it right, you can end up wasting a lot of money and throwing money down the drain and getting the wrong type of customer coming through to you. So I think it's a real challenge for businesses, in my opinion.
So one of the slogans the government came out with when trying to address this issue about upskilling and reskilling was building back better. Do you think that this huge effort in upskilling and reskilling employees will be something that will be with us over time, or is just something that businesses engage with to address the current challenges? That's
a really good question. Who knows, right? It's good to try and keep it not too political, but I spend a lot of time, particularly at the moment. I get sick of myself talking about it, but this new social media audio app called Clubhouse. Some of you may or may not have heard of it. I spend a lot of time on there, and I've actually starting running regular rooms supporting entrepreneurs and business owners. So I get, we have hundreds, if not thousands of people coming through a week. So I'm listening to what people are, their concerns and what needs they are. They often ask about Instagram nonstop. But the other thing, which is we've spoken about a lot, is this Kickstarter scheme that the government set up, which allowed businesses to bring in apprentices effectively to, for a short period of time. Initially, when it was set up, it wasn't set up in a way that enabled small businesses to do that effectively, but that has now changed so that, I could go and get an apprentice. And I definitely think that it's definitely generated a lot of interest amongst the business community in terms of that as a focus. And I hear a lot of businesses and entrepreneurs who are making the most of that scheme. The question is, does that translate into improved culture around upskilling and training people? I'm going to say I'm a bit cynical about that one. I'm not too sure. I think, who knows what the world will look like in a few years' time when we get to a point when hopefully this pandemic isn't, having the effect on all of us that it is. I'm hoping it won't be, but I suspect that it will go back to business as usual. But we'll wait and see. I hope that the amount of time we've been in this pandemic has helped people to actually change their behaviors enough that things do change. And I think, on top of that, with a lot of conversation around the climate crisis, and I maybe live in a bit of a bubble in Brighton in terms of the business owners that I speak to and the people I speak to, but I do believe that there is going to be change off the back of it. How wide and far that goes, who knows? But I remain hopeful.
Certainly, what this pandemic has taught many businesses is the need to be agile, to learn to be agile, but also to leverage the contacts and the relationship that they're built by running their businesses. So you were talking about a non-traditional provider of training and education. You were talking about this government scheme, but many business owners have also resorted to their business partners as a source of support, training, further contacts. What was your experience about that? And did you find that type of support in your specific situation instrumental to allow your bakery to thrive over time?
Yes, yeah, definitely. That's one of the greatest things I think has come out of the last, how many are we now, 14, 15 months. People come together in a time of crisis. Communities, that's where they really form and come together, in my view. And that has definitely been the case in the business community. When this first happened, I was astounded and really moved by the level of support that businesses were giving to one another. Even with our customers, like I've mentioned when we spoke last time, that one of our main customers over the last 14 months, I've formed an amazing relationship with them, much closer, much deeper. You know, it's been very supportive, and I believe that those relationships and those contacts and those networks that have been formed over that time will set us up, because, you know, they have been formed now into the future. You know, you only have to go onto LinkedIn or any sort of business network to see that level of support. So yeah, I think it's definitely had a positive impact.
I think one of the points we discussed also when we first talked was also the struggle of keeping everyone engaged. People suddenly working remotely, not seeing each other anymore, especially for physical businesses where people were used to see each other every day and work together side by side. That was really a struggle. So one of the main struggle, I think, for especially startups has been really like being able to keep focus and attention and engagement while being in different places. How did you address this challenge, and how did you cope with this?
Yeah, so we were, I want to say, fortunate in the sense that we're a physical business and we're a food business. So we were actually allowed to stay open during the pandemic because we were classed as a critical service. So I think in terms of sort of motivation and you know, keeping people going throughout that time, I wouldn't be able to comment necessarily on that, but I would say that there was, and there still is, I think, to a certain degree, a detrimental impact on people's mental health, because people were scared. We had some employees who didn't want to come into work. You know, they refused to come in. Some that, you know, weren't phased. We've now had to switch to remote working in terms of the team that we have that aren't in the bakery. So the ones that are remote working from home. And yeah, it's definitely been a challenge. I think you really have to engage. You know, I think when you're working together, you don't really, in my experience, check in with each other as much as we have been. You know, I'm constantly checking in with my team, you know, when we have our calls together and also offline, and really focusing more on the mental health aspect of it. So making sure that when I do have a meeting with someone, I always ask at the beginning, how are you doing? What is going on for you? How's your family? You know, and asking those kinds of questions a lot more than I would previously, because it would be in passing. You'd be able to see each other, get the vibe, how someone is when you're face to face. But on these platforms, it's so much more difficult. And if you're texting a lot, you know, you're relying on new forms of communication, be it Zoom, be it WhatsApp, be it a voice note, be it a video call, and it's much harder to judge. So I've definitely had to spend a lot more time focusing on that. And actually, I've seen the positive impacts, particularly for one member of staff who was quite young and really struggled. And I've coped, you know, I've used those techniques to support her, and also done a lot of coaching with her to really understand what's going on. Because I think for me, growing up, often in business, it was leave your problems at the door. And that is something that I am really adamant does not happen. So I really make sure that I understand what's going on for people, things that they wouldn't normally speak about, and if they feel comfortable to, that they would, to enable me to provide the support they need. And even though this person's very young, they have, I'll say you're very young, they're early 20s, they've had some time in a corporate career, and it's been they've kind of been trained to be a certain way. So it's untraining them and letting them know that it's safe to speak about that sort of stuff. I mentioned in my bio that I'm a huge advocate for mental health and mental health awareness and breaking that stigma. And I really notice you have to untrain people to the way that they think. But when you get to that point, it's magic. So yeah, those would be my thoughts on that one.
Thanks, Jeremy. So if we want to summarize, we could say that to thrive to this pandemic and being able to survive, but also identify elements that can allow you to survive over time, you have to be prepared to pivot, to adapt, to be agile, but also to keep engagement with the people you are working with.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's, you know, there's nothing there's nothing that I haven't had to do before the pandemic. Like all of these things, the ability to pivot, to spot opportunities, to deal with adversity, to deal with, you know, breakdowns within teams, you know, all these things have been present. The problem is that it's all come at once, and it's all been so intense, and it's nonstop. And who can tell us what's going to happen in the next 6 months? We have no idea. We've had so much false start, false hope, all that sort of stuff, that I'm sat here as a business owner going, I don't know what the next 6 months or 12 months look like, really. And yes, as an entrepreneur, you have to be able, that is part of the game, right? It's part of the rules of being an entrepreneur, that you have to be prepared to be unprepared, you know, prepare for the unprepared. No, there's a saying in my brain, I'm quite tired today, so I forgot what it is, but you know what I mean? It's like, you just have to be prepared that things will go wrong. And I was watching an episode of Shark Tank, which is, if you don't know what it is, it's like Dragon Den, US Dragon's Den. And one of them said, you know, as an entrepreneur, you have to be constantly paranoid. And I was like, yeah, I agree. Not paranoid is a bit strong, but you have to really be, you know, watching out for everything. So I think it's been an intense 14 months. I know, and I speak to a lot of fellow business owners, we are exhausted. I am exhausted mentally and physically, absolutely. And you just got to keep on going, because, I mean, got no other choice, really. I mean, I could walk away, but that's not me. I'm not giving up my business. So, you know, that steadfast, being determined is definitely a character trait of mine.
Never give up. We need those cupcakes.
No, exactly. What would the world do without them?
This is fantastic. Thank you so much, Monica, for, you know, pairing up those very clearly stated points, and for Jeremy to provide such a great and personal illustration. You've always been very generous with sharing your very rich personal experience. You've also been very, very insightful, and you have a level of self-reflection which is, you know, distinguishes you, and clearly you've gone through a lot and you've come out every time stronger. So it's fantastic. And I'm going to start with asking a question from the audience, but then I will have a question as well myself to ask you later on. But I'm going to start with a question from Olawale. Olawale, do you want to ask the question yourself? Do you want to open your mic? You put it on the chat as well. Or otherwise.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon from Nigeria. It's such a wonderful experience learning some of his challenges and how he became an entrepreneur. You know, because it's actually a hard road. When you be an entrepreneur, you will have to fall many times. But I just want to know areas where he got support, and maybe had funding or he had help from outside, and because those are some of the areas that most entrepreneurs struggles with.
Okay, that's lovely. So how did you get your support? How do you get your funding when you started your business?
When I started the business, I didn't get any funding or support. Like we're talking about when I started in 2009. Yeah.
Everyone is interested in how you're starting. Yeah, no, definitely.
What we like to call bootstrapped the business. I didn't have any funding. We didn't take any funding or investment. We've never taken any, what I'm going to call third-party outside investment. We've taken investment or from within our family, but I've never taken any like investment in the traditional sense from anywhere. What was beneficial for us is when we started the business, I was also working as a digital marketing consultant. I was actually working at Waitrose in their head office, running all their search and social. And we did it on the side, and it was what now is known as a side hustle. I'm down with the kids. We all the money that came in, we'd reinvest it back into the business and go from there.
You're omitting a very important part. You started from your mum's kitchen, right?
Oh yes, yeah. Sorry, yeah. We started from my mum's. I'll give you a brief overview. Yeah, we started from my mum's kitchen. It was actually, we argue about who technically started the business. She was the the expert in baking. And I was the one who came along and said, do you want me to, I was the entrepreneur who came in and went, oh, this is an opportunity for my mum to earn some money on the side. So I used my skills to build a website, which I did. When I left for voluntary redundancy from my job, I had time off and I had a bit of money. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to, hang out and do whatever. And I built this website, put it online within 24 hours. Another repeating story of what happened with the pandemic. We had our first inquiry of someone who wanted cupcakes for their wedding. And I was like, oh, okay, we've not made any cupcakes for anyone professional. I'd love to ruin your wedding. That was what went through my head at the time. So we started out like that. And because we were all working, we had an income. Every penny that came into the business went straight into the bank account and stayed there. And then we used that to reinvest and grow. I won't go through the detail of all of how that happened, but we had cash in the bank, and then it was just constantly looking for new opportunities. What's next? How can we grow? Customer actually, I mentioned this one. A customer actually came to us and inquired about printing a logo onto a cupcake. I'd seen it being done, so we went, yeah, we can do that, and then we went and figured it out. The same happened with Virgin Atlantic. They said, can you make us 75,000 cupcakes a week? I went, yes, we can. Had no idea how I was going to do it. Went and figured it out because I knew it could be done. So that's kind of been the pattern that's happened throughout my career.
Right.
I hope that's answered the question.
I think you did. You started very organically. That's great. So are there any more questions from the audience?
I think one more has just popped up from Shannon.
Oh, yes. Hi, Jeremy. If you were to go through this pandemic again, or Shannon can actually ask herself if she wants.
Oh, has my camera gone all blurry?
Yeah, your camera has gone
blurry. I've got this really expensive camera that is absolutely appalling. So it doesn't work very well on a Mac. Is that any better? Anyway, you don't need to see my face. It probably looks a bit better blurred.
So what would you do differently and why? If you want?
Oh, good question. What would I do differently and why? Yeah, no, what would I do differently and why? Okay, I would say I would have trusted myself more. That's a bit of an honest share. But yeah, I would have definitely trusted myself more. I think we moved very quickly into a new market and we tried to. So the thing I want to say, which I don't think I shared earlier, is that pivoting's great, but when you're doing it in the middle of a pandemic, when you've lost all your other income, the problem you've got is that it takes a long time to build this. I'm going into a new market, right? B2B, from B2B, business to business to business to consumer. And the issue is that, yes, we did do some stuff in the B2B, B2C market in the past, but we were kind of coming into it fresh. So our brand awareness was right down the bottom and we had to build that up. So it's been great, but it's taking longer than we expected for us to really get the traction that we wanted. And so what happened was, because there's been so much uncertainty over the last 14 months, we've kind of had one finger in the pie of, oh, hopefully the other customers will come back, and then we've got another, and so we spread ourselves a bit too thin, in my opinion. And I think I would have trusted myself more to go, right, let's put all of our eggs, or most of our eggs, into this basket and put a lot of effort behind it to make it successful. I think we've definitely spread ourselves too thin and tried to do too many things with the size of the team and the resources that we've got and the environment we're in. So I think I'd have gone back. I probably would have gone all guns for the online shop and just left everything else off the table and just focused on that. But there we go. Can't do anything about that.
That's a very great point. But I would like to have Monica's reaction to that point, because I'm sure that there is something going on that many entrepreneurs might find this, like you don't know what it works until it works. So would like to.
Yeah, that's why we always encourage entrepreneurs to kind of go out and test things as quickly as they can, get feedback very early on, before developing full-fledged solutions, just get an early test with the market. That's the only way to know whether it works or not. Otherwise, you might be developing this perfect solution, a perfect service that nobody wants. The only way to really know is to check with what you have identified as your target customers. There are several also techniques for agile work, like Scrum, for instance. Scrum is something that was developed in the context of software development. You give yourself some objectives, measurable. In 2 weeks, you have to achieve something. If you don't achieve, that triggers a process of reflection on why you didn't achieve that. Maybe you didn't prioritize your task well. Maybe there were some external factors that interfered. Or maybe simply that, the things, you were not good at planning activities, or some of those activities were not really like a priority. So you should focus your attention on something else. You have to think that small businesses, startups, they have limited resources, also a limited number of people. And as Jeremy was saying, maybe you try to accomplish too many things at the same time, while you should just think of focusing on something that might become your priority.
Okay.
Can I just add to that? Do you know why I didn't do all of that planning and stuff? Because I was finishing my MBA at the same time.
So it's their fault.
No, but I just wanted to add that in because I want to. So the busiest period of the MBA for me happened in April, May, June, and July. So I actually emailed someone. I emailed John and was like, I'm going to defer till next year. And John was great. And he went, no, just crack on and do it. And I'm really glad I did. But oh my word, was it hard? Trust me.
Well done. I have a question, and I have a question about that later on. But now I want to follow up with a question that Maria has asked online. Maria, do you want to ask the question yourself, actually?
Oh, thanks. First of all, thank you, Jeremy and Monica, because actually, Jeremy, it's great to hear that we have a connection through Sussex, because I've been reading a lot about Ray's Bakery during the pandemic. I was bakers trying to find some ingredients. So I was curious to learn a bit more about this pivoting, because you mentioned that you had been doing you had some business to consumer going on, but it was very tiny. And then the pandemic actually seemed to have shifted that a lot towards that new line of your business. So I wanted to understand whether this was something that you had planned and actually the pandemic had just accelerated it, or it was actually almost a serendipitous outcome of this pandemic.
That's a great question, Maria, and thank you for asking it, and lovely to meet you. And I'm glad you knew about us before. Yeah, that's a really great question, because actually it was a case of it accelerated what we always wanted to do. I actually always wanted to set an online shop up. And also start our own branded range of products, which we've just launched in the last few weeks, actually, because I wanted to start to build some brand equity, to build the brand up, because we were primarily B2B. And the problem with that is you only tend to be known, particularly the way we were selling our product, we were only known within the industry. So if you asked a consumer who had been through an airport lounge who Ray's Bakery is, they'd go, no idea, because we're not branded anywhere. So definitely it was something that I've been thinking about. And if I was going to be, saying what benefits would the pandemic have brought, then it would have been that it would have accelerated that. But again, probably because we just had no choice and we needed to move into those spaces anyway. Yeah, so that would be my answer. Definitely, it was something we were already thinking about and planning at some point.
Any more questions from Jeremy from the audience? Otherwise, I have one. Okay, I'm going to ask my question. What have you learned? We have a lot of alumni, or other than alumni, we have also a lot of students from the MBA online. So I wanted to ask you, can you bring us reflection how the MBA has helped us, if apart from complicating your life for the most difficult point? I think you've gone on mute. Oh no, you're
yeah,
not.
No. I've been asked this question quite a lot, from people. So my camera's gone blurry again. Try and refocus it.
Yeah.
There we go. Perfect. Yes. So how's the MBA? So I get asked this a lot from people who've said, like, how was your experience, etc. I did the MBA it's going to sound a bit, I don't know if it's going to sound a bit odd, but I did the MBA purely from I just want to do it. Like, I didn't have any intention. Like, some people will do it to, further their career or whatever. That was not my intention at all. I taught everything I knew, everything I'd learned about business, I taught myself or learned from the internet or other business owners or whatever. And I really wanted to understand, what are the theories, what are the concepts, what is all that sort of theory side of that, knowledge side of business, that I'm actually really interested in that side of things. So I wanted to go, well, okay, I've taught everything myself, but what's best practice, and engage with other business owners, entrepreneurs, or, people who are working within various industries, and to just to augment my knowledge, that I already had. I would say without a shadow of a doubt, it's provided me with a lot more confidence around business. Confidence in not only being able to talk around business and entrepreneurship or whatever subject it is, but also, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Yeah, in terms of knowledge and talking to other business owners, and also within my own business as well, just being able to make decisions quicker, with more certainty. It's definitely provided me with a lot of that. I was able to do a lot of my project work and on my business. So my marketing plan, my strategy document, all of that was written on Ray's Bakery. And I put it all together and sent it off to a potential investor. And they went, this is an extremely comprehensive business plan. I was like, oh, thank you very much. So, from a practical step, it's definitely done that. But it's exposed me to the other thing which I definitely got from it, and which has really helped, is it exposed me to so many different areas of business that I would never have been exposed to before and wouldn't have had an interest in. And then I can go, oh, actually, that really interests me. Like, for me, I'm really clear. Finance, no. I'm not interested in that. I have to have a general level of understanding for my business. I have to understand numbers. I love spreadsheets, don't get me wrong. No offense to anyone. I can't see anyone finance people are on the call, but for me, I'm really clear. Finance is not for me, right? I'd like to understand a bit more, but no. But strategy and marketing and leadership, yes. Like, and I know we've talked about this, about potentially talking about this in the future. If you talk to me about my subject of my dissertation, you will not shut me up, because I did that in the field of leadership. And so I'm really clear about what my passions are, where I want to focus my intention, because there's so many aspects to business. And I do think, I'd want to try and learn it all, but I can't. So I need to focus on the areas that I'm most passionate about. So I hope that's answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to, I've got someone else here. Oh, Jacob. Jacob, do you want to ask? Or do you want me to read it?
Hi, thanks. I don't know if it made complete sense. It's just, sorry, I'm just going to turn off my notifications. So when you have to expand, for instance, so when you have, say, when the pandemic started and you had a bunch of new orders and you're going from, say, 100 to 300 or whatever, so there's an immediate need for expansion, and perhaps that keeps up. So, suddenly there's a new delivery model and so on. How do you fill those gaps? And is it a case of hiring someone, a kind of a chicken egg situation? Do you curtail the amount of orders you have in so you're able to manage with it, or do you accept all the orders and try and expand to fulfill that need?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jacob. Thank you. I refused to stop accepting orders, because at the time I was like, it's money, get it through the door, we'll figure it out later. I think so there was a couple of things there. One was, as I said, there was a few things there. So one thing is we had to hire a lot of people very, very quickly. We had to bring in a team of 10 because we had to repack flour. So that was the reason why the supermarkets run out, because it wasn't the quantity of flour. Little fact for you: 96% of all flour produced in the UK goes into food service and manufacturing. It doesn't even hit the shelves. So 4%, it's a very small amount. The problem was there wasn't enough packaging mills to put the flour into retail packaging to go onto the shelves. And then the packaging started to run out. So we were taking big bags of flour and literally hand packing them and putting them into bags and sealing them. So it was very labor intensive. But in terms of, we had one thing which we were fortunate about was we had an existing relationship with our courier, which was all set up. So we didn't have to do all that sort of side of things, but we relied extremely heavily on tech. So we used Shopify as our platform for the e-commerce website. And then we used an app called a tech app called Zen Stores, which enabled us to send all of our orders through to our courier, and then we would get the labels back and print them out. If we'd have had to have done that manually, we would have had to employ probably 2 or 3 people maybe to sit there and hand type it in. So we had to, this was the reality of it. I had to sit down and go onto Google and go like, how do I figure this out? And found Zen Stores and put it into the app, and it sped everything up. So I think it was a risk doing that because, as I said earlier, customer service is really important to us. So we don't want to let people down, but people were way more understanding because of the context. So we were delivering people products so fast, they were shocked because everywhere else was saying, it's going to take maybe 5 to 7 working days to get to you. We were getting people stuff within 2 days, and they were honestly and they still say we're really, really fast. So we've been able to find a part of the service which customers really value and love. And in the world of Amazon, that is so important because people expect everything tomorrow. So so those would be my top line. Has that answered your question, Jacob?
Yeah, no, certainly. Thanks.
Cool, pleasure.
Basically never refuse the orders, Jeremy. That's what I'm understanding, right?
Yeah, unless yes, to a certain extent, unless it's going to have such a detrimental impact that the customers are going to get annoyed and never come back. Yeah. When I talk to people about paid search, one of the things I want to make sure is, are you ready to handle? The volume that could potentially come off the back of this. That's a really important thing that people need to think about.
Fantastic. So we have 5 more minutes. I think this has been an extremely rich conversation. Again, Jeremy has been very articulate. Monica, do you have any more last questions, last comments, or does anyone have a last question?
Maybe just a curiosity related to what Jeremy was saying, like balancing the need to kind of take orders, but with the risk of impacting negatively your customer experience. As a result of all the improvement you have made, I have some kind of personal anecdotes to share as well. Most of the local shops I rely on, I think they have improved dramatically their level. I was asking earlier, do you think that some of these changes will stay with us? I think some of these changes, and that's my hope, will definitely stay. Customers are now so used to a better kind of experience, a better quality of the service, that they will expect that also in the coming days. So I cannot see that reverse back effect. So I was curious about hearing also Jeremy's view on this.
So do you mean in terms of not rolling back the changes that we've made? Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's anything that I would change, make any different. As long as it's beneficial. Yeah, I would say the short answer to that question is no, because I think that everything is working really well. In terms of what changes we've implemented. I think that's another thing which, not necessarily with the online shop, but as a wider thing, which I certainly know a lot of people have done, is that sometimes you end up with clients and customers that you don't really like working with, and it's a bit difficult to get out with, or they provide a bit of income. So you're like, okay, I'm not going to touch that. And then they get forced away, and then you go, oh, maybe I won't go back to them. And maybe I'll start to work with clients and customers that I love working with and I want to work with. So that's definitely something that I think I would say would change. And there's also, without going into too much detail, a lot about how I run my business. I was working like I was what would be classed as a servant leader most of the time. I'd be like, oh, okay, what do you need and how can I help? And actually, I've started to prioritize my own mental health and well-being as an entrepreneur. I definitely care a lot about my team, but just readdressing that balance and being clearer with, this is what I'm going to do and this is what I'm not going to do. This is what I expect you to do. And just be clearer around the agreements that I put in place with people, because I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll do that. And the other thing as well, which is definitely something I've learned, is focusing on income generating activities only. So I've just hired a virtual assistant this week to come in and help support me, to take a lot of the tasks, because I really had to sit down and write down what I was doing, go, why am I sending invoices out to customers? That doesn't make any sense. So just looking at that. So I think that is definitely be brought about by the pandemic, and those changes will definitely stay.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Well, I think that we have finished. We are on time. We've had an incredibly generous contribution from Jeremy and Monica as well. I think that Monica, you really helped us. I don't know anything about entrepreneurship, but I kind of feel I know a bit more now. So thank you very much. And Jeremy, thank you so much for being with us. You have been a fantastic contributor to the MBA. The MBA works only because of the contribution of the people in it, and you continue to be a contributor to the conversation within the university. So we're really grateful very much to have your partnership. So thank you very much. A big round of applause to everyone. Can we see the hands up?
Thanks to you for inviting us. Wonderful tandem, Jeremy. More to come.
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you. Firstly, thank you for inviting me, and thank to everyone who's joined and listened and asked questions. And I just want to give a shout out to Sam and anyone else, all the lecturers who've been so awesome and supportive over the last, over the pandemic and just throughout the whole course. You guys have been amazing, and you've enabled me to finish with a distinction, and I'm very happy with that. And you guys have been amazing. So thank you so much.
Okay, brilliant. Looking forward to having you back. Thank you again, Monica, and bye everyone. Thank you all for joining.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you very much.
Monica.